Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cloud Chats. We begin today with a very special guest of mine who's going to be talking about a subject that's all in the forefront of our mind in the workplace and beyond. But first, Cloud Chats was developed to help you thrive and survive in the virtual world. I'm Pat Martinez at Leadership in the Clouds. Cloud Chats is here to provide you with some nuggets of information that you can take and utilize today. My guest today is Alfred Ramirez. He's going to be joining us now on the camera. Alfred, are you there?
I'm coming in.
Thank you for joining me. I know that you're
Thank
going to
you.
be a little embarrassed, but I want to just give a little bit of information about you. I think the world of you. Alfred Ramirez is the president of Diverse Strategies Now. He's a frequent speaker, trainer, facilitator for public and private organizations, businesses, K through 12 schools, universities, communities nationwide. His background is very, very diverse, as he is. But he's also served for President Clinton as an associate director in the White House, Office of the Presidential Personnel, senior advisor at the Corporation for National Service, and executive director of the White House Initiative on Education Excellence for Hispanic Americans at the U.S. Department of Education. His background is very diverse. I ask you to take time to look at his LinkedIn bio, and then you'll be able to know who you're speaking with today. Alfred, I'm glad that we got together. How's everything going
Thank
by
you.
you?
Great. And one thing you didn't mention in there is that we've been friends for decades, and I've followed you in your leadership and collaborated with you in your leadership positions over the years. And it's a pleasure to be part of what I think you hold is this space of integrity and that's relevant and in real time. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. You know, the decades, we could just say 1 decade.
Yeah.
I age by the minute.
Right,
You
right.
know, you coined the phrase Jedi, and I think that that's amazing. I know a lot of people may be using it, some may not, but Jedi stands for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And in today's world, I think you are the Jedi. And I
Mm,
just want to thank you for that. Your leadership goes beyond bounds. Your friendship is something that I treasure, and you're part of the leadership LITC Alliance. And we'll be talking today about challenges in diversity, which we all know is something that we all face. I know you're comfortable with having that conversation, correct?
Yep, yep, yep. Definitely. And
So,
I do want to add to so others use the term Jedi. I also have added B plus B and A, belonging and accessibility to that as
oh,
well.
so what's the acronym?
So it's Jedi plus B and A.
DNA. Okay.
Okay.
Well, you know, leave it to you to diversify the title of diversity and to keep it always fresh. You know, in today's marketplace, we hear a lot of clamor, a lot of discussion, and we see action being taken to demystify or actually actually just take away the word diversity
Mhm.
in anything we do. But let's go back to a time where we're really talking about diversity. And let me ask you this question. What are some of the biggest diversity issues in the workplace that you find from before and currently now that you find are some of the things that are common that most people face?
I think one universe when we think about universal themes or over time issues that have existed, I think one is basically demystifying, as you mentioned, what diversity is and all the other pieces that go with that, the Jedi plus BA, issues. That's one issue. Demystifying that, and also taking away any myths around it, and plainly and simply, there is a level of ignorance, and that's not. I'm using that as a plain neutral word. Ignorance meaning not knowing.
Mm,
There's a level of ignorance around all the pieces that go into being humane and being accepting and understanding culture. And not to think about culture as assimilation, where you have to give up yours to belong to a larger culture, but actually to acculturate, to maintain your sense of who you are, your history, your pride, and everything that goes with how you do things with to maintain that as you blend in or mix in, I should say, with another country, with another culture. And also, I don't believe that we are a melting pot in the United States. We are not a melting pot. We're a tossed salad. Okay. We're all part of this salad bowl, and we all remain that item, that individual item. We haven't been melded or melted or boiled to a broth.
We add flavor to the
Yes,
dish.
yeah, con
Yeah,
sabor.
yeah.
Yes.
So, Alfred, you're being an expert in the diversity space. What's one example of diversity issue in the workplace? You mentioned culture, but what are some of the other things? Because a lot diversity word has been thrown around so many times. What is your definition, or give us an example of diversity in the workplace?
So one thing is, if we look at the workplace, we're more connected than we've ever been. Even when people talk about being disconnected or separate or divided, when we look at the cross-cultural dynamics that occur in an organization, the global clients and communities that we engage in from out of our organizations, and even the collaboration that exists among teams, the individual team members. So I think we need to start with the fact that all global is local. That if you look at, if anyone just looks out their window or drives in their community, they're a global community. They either visibly or globally have been impacted by all of the issues that occur worldwide. Business, commerce, tariffs, and this current situation on the economy has brought that to light for everyone. And I'll say this too, and I don't want this to be too long-winded, so I'm breaking it up into segments. We need to understand that we are all part of an ecosystem. Okay, that we all are interdependent, interrelated, and interconnected. And again, with what we're seeing in the business environment via the tariffs, people would have never thought that there were so many dots that connect us globally as we do commerce, as we exchange, and how that affects our communities. So that we are an ecosystem, and we're more than ever connected because of the speed of light of information and technology, and now more so artificial intelligence.
So I want to give you a little pushback on the connectivity because I know that you're ready for this. But what about tribalism? I'm finding people in a time of need, they become more tribal. And instead of cross-sectioning their accomplishments or even trying to work together as a team, I'm finding tribalism. Is that
Mhm.
something that I'm perceiving, or is that a fact in the workplace,
No, no,
even in the
not at
community?
all. In fact, there's a kind of a geez, I don't even know what to call it, but there's this convergence of fear and tribalism. I think the
Mhm.
fear is driving the tribalism, and at the same time, if you reverse it, tribalism has also encompassed hope and connectivity. So there's an interesting convergence right now. There's nothing wrong with belonging to a tribe, belonging to a particular culture or group, but when you become exclusionary, even hateful or harmful, then there's cause for alarms to go off. And I think really what's driving it is fear, and also the echo chambers that people listen to or are part of, where they're only looking for what I call confirmation bias. What will confirm their bias? And so yeah, it's not so much a pushback. I think you're right. There is that undercurrent, or actually, it's a riptide,
Mhm.
really, that we're getting sucked into.
So getting back to the workplace, some of the common things that we see in the workplace, what are some of the common, because you work across the gamut of not only in the education space, but the public and the private spaces as well. What are some of the common challenges associated with workplace diversity? As far as when we talk about biases and discrimination and open door policies and things of that nature.
Mhm. So there are a few key items that rise to the top. One is, and it's more of a happening, and it's been happening every decade. That's the five generations in the workplace. We have five generations in the workplace with very distinct life experiences, and there is some crossover depending on where you are. Are you at the beginning or the end of that generation? You kind of cross over a bit. Um, but so we have those five generations in the workplace, and how are they managing to get along? and in some areas, a shrinking economy or
Mm,
shrinking employment base. So that's that one piece. The other is just the expectation that the communities clients or customers of an organization or brand, what they expect. What do they want to see more justice and equity and inclusion, more social responsibility for the people that they buy from. That's another tug and pull because, as we know, many companies are pulling back
mhm.
from DEI programs. They've let people go in those positions. They've taken things off of their brand taglines, even their mission and purpose and philosophy. So I think if there's anything frightening and alarming right now is a reactionary, um, a reactionary response to what are actually mandates that are senseless. I think telling people what they can read, write, and speak when it
Yeah.
relates to DEI, I think is a crime.
Do you think it's a knee-jerk reaction or is it a founded fear? Are people perceiving that there's fear in the workplace and they're just taking measures to try to anticipate problems, or are they coming down the pike?
I think there's a profit motive. I think that some organizations are worried about being punished for engaging in DEI practices because they've been told that they can't and won't and shouldn't, and that there will be consequences. So I think there's that by some organizations or companies. The other is that within the workplace, if someone felt that they were passed over, yeah, and they now have someone to blame or groups to blame. So we're going back decades in terms of growth and open-minded approaches and inclusion. And I think that's a real key issue in the workplace. You have so when you think about factions that can be arise, so you have people not saying things anymore, not speaking their truth,
Yeah.
not feeling that just when they felt they were belonging several months ago, now they're feeling that they can't be themselves and are living in fear for saying or being or doing or even existing.
You know, I remember an article by Dr. Johnson here in North Carolina. It's the Browning of America. I know that you know that article as well, and he wrote on that. You know, we're talking about the Browning of America for many years, how that pushed diversity and inclusion. It empowered some people to say it's okay to be part of a tribe that doesn't get to the forefront. Um, when we talk about discrimination, biases, you're very good at our groups when we have our talks about talking about unconscious biases. How is that playing a factor in the fear? What's going on right now in the temperature, not only in the workplace? We're talking about globalism. It's happening every place, not only in the workplace, but in the communities. So by unconscious biases, are they bubbling up as well?
Yes, several come to mind. So when you think about hiring now,
Mm.
are we looking for the best fit, the best culture fit, or the best culture add? We're moving away from someone adding to a culture and now looking at how do they fit in to the environment that we'd like to take back or reshape. So that's one issue on the very
Expand a little bit more on that. The
so
culture
literally,
ad.
when you look at resumes, are you looking at any names that sound ethnic?
Mhm.
Peer ethnic, or any organizations that someone belongs to that gives clues to that effect. You can't always tell by a name. So even before someone gets moved forward for review, there could be some bias there. When someone gets selected for an interview, what are the unconscious biases that occur in that interview process? Many times, someone's interviewed by several people, or even individually, several people, or by committee. Does someone have that halo effect, that bias, where that someone across the table who's interviewing went to the same school, grew up the same way, looks like them, and they feel that they would be quote unquote great fit, not so much a culture add.
So I've always been the person of looking for nuggets for solution. That's why we always have these deep conversations. How would we find a solution? What would be some of the strategies you would put in place for people in the workplace that are either confronting unconscious biases, discrimination, or the fear factor, or even some of our youth that are coming out of the universities looking for jobs. They're starting to feel there's nothing out there. Before they felt there was nothing out there, but now they're saying on top of that, there's another layer that I have to contend with. Is my last name too ethnic? Am I
Mhm.
part of a group that I shouldn't be part of? I tend to post on Puerto Rican items. Is that something that somebody should look at their social media? So I know it's a large question, but basically, what are some nuggets of wisdom that you can share with those that are listening to us today?
So you raised some great examples of what's happening or what people are thinking or even actions people are taking. So one thing I'll say outright in response to what you just posed, Pat, is that the minute you start compromising yourself and versus compromising, you're going down a very slippery slope. One thing I would express to everyone in viewing today's conversation is do compromise, but don't compromise yourself. Understand your values, what you stand for, what you believe in, what drives your what's underneath your mission and purpose and vision for what you want to do in the world or be. The other is, can you really hide? With so much social media recorded out there, I think it would entail you taking down your profiles.
Yeah.
And so do you really want to be invisible? Do you want to take down your LinkedIn? Do you want to take down your Facebook or X or anywhere else that you belong? So rather than take those extreme measures, look at what else you could bring to the surface as far as transferable skills. Play to your strengths, play to your education, and what most people don't do enough of is their lived experience. They downplay that or they don't include it at all. But literally, how have you acquired your wisdom? How have you been putting it into action? How have you seen it play out? So those are some things I would recommend there. And also, if you have to take away any organizations you belong to, any pieces you've written, do you really want to work for an organization that you're doing that for? So you get hired, but to what end? And really, to what degree of happiness or loneliness, are you willing to sustain it? And also willing to endure?
And you hit the nail on the head. Happiness. You are a combination of your experiences, where you've been, the road you've traveled. One of the things that I know when we have our workshops, the students always comment how you said that in LA you used to lean back. When you went to New York, you had to lean forward.
Yeah, I had to
Um,
change. I had to change.
Yeah, so those little visualizations that you share and that we've shared, that's part of our background. I can't
Mhm.
take away who I am. I can't metamorphosize into something because there is a trend out there, because trends do change. If you
Mhm.
stay with your authentic self, if I hear you correctly, authenticity is the key word here that I'm taking away from all this. Am I
Mhm.
correct in saying
Oh,
that?
you're very correct. In fact, I just did a workshop last week with two days back to back with mid-career leaders and emerging leaders in corporate sectors out of Boston, um, and virtually, and we did two sessions once each month, it was on branding.
Mm,
And it was called with the anatomy of your brand, your individual brand. First we started with knowing yourself,
mhm.
your why, your origin story. Basically how and what do you believe, and how did you arrive at that? So it's very important to understand your motives, and your purpose for existing and wanting to make change. So that's really key. And I also think that when we think about our individual brand, many of us bring so much to the table that lived experience is not just lived experience for one. It's how do you interact in teams? How do you see a bigger picture? Collectively, do you think more collectively than individually?
Mhm.
Do you speak for the team when they're not there, rather than just your accomplishments, how you were able to do something with the help of the team? So
I
that lived.
think people in a team also feel that the higher power, when you talk about higher performance, And
Mm-hmm.
that's what companies are looking for, is hitting that bottom line, the profitable growth. And
Right.
sustaining profitable growth is making sure that you have a culture within that company of people staying, because
Right.
turnover is a negative thing. You don't want to have high turnovers in a company. So happiness is one of those buzzwords that I
Mhm.
love to hear when people
Yeah.
describe in the conversations of diversity, that it has to
Mhm.
be part of it. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm sorry, what were we going to continue
Oh, I was
saying?
just going to say that, there's literature out there. There's a book on the five dysfunctions of a team. And
Yes.
then the counterpoint is the five qualities of a highly functioning team. And at the very basic foundational piece is trust.
That's right.
And that has to exist so that you can in fact be happy and have psychological safety and belonging.
When we talk about trust, authenticity, one of the reasons why I even went virtual and Leadership in the Clouds came to be was that I wanted everybody to have a front row seat. I equalized it because it doesn't matter. Both of us work with C-suite members, leadership, CEOs of corporate, well, we call them captains of industry, even though some females in there as well.
Right.
But we also work with future leaders that are up and coming the pipeline. So the idea that I had of having Leadership in the Cloud so that we could give a front row seat virtually, at first, nobody understood it. And I think we're at this point now that even though people are fearful, I think it's a moment in time that we're going to look back and say, aha, I remember that time when everybody was fearful, but we stuck to our guns, we became authentic, and we kept on going forward. Do you feel this is, as we close up this conversation, do you feel that what are some of the nuggets of futurism that you see in your crystal ball of diversity that's going to be happening?
Mhm. So one of the things that has been occurring that has impact for the future for how we deal with it is what I call VUCA. And I tease people. I open up by saying, "Do you do VUCA or do you speak VUCA?" And that's V as in Victor or Veronica, UCA, and it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Basically, that means in layman's terms, hey, it's crazy out here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's a crazy world. And that term's back from the 50s or 60s. But really, I think we need to put it to the forefront that
Yeah.
we have to understand that there's chaos, but in chaos, there's order. And so we're not experiencing anything new. What we're experiencing is the rapidity, the rapid pace of what we're experiencing, and the ability to impact, technologically, on a dime in a moment's notice and have far-reaching consequences.
So pivoting
Right.
and
Exactly.
adapting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Again, in layperson's
Flexibility.
terms,
Yeah.
pivoting. And with that pivot comes the ability to agility, to be agile. And I'll give some other words out there that I live by or have been living with, and are both agility but resilience.
Yeah.
And it's not, when we think about resilience, like if some people characterize it as a rubber band that gets pulled, stretched, and then goes and then snaps back. You never snap back. Once you've
Mm-hmm.
stretched, there's no going back. You
Yeah.
can fall back into old habits, whatever, but you've already seen the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I
I
would
always
say
say, once you've seen, you can't unsee. Once
e-
you know, you can't unknow. Once you
exactly.
know something, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right.
Know
And
it.
with that, I would say once you have seen and once you do know, that makes you accountable and responsible. No excuses. You need to do something with that.
In the Latino space, the other day I heard John Leguizamo. We all
Mm.
know him,
I love what
famous.
he's doing lately. Yep.
Yeah, he's coming out and saying we have to keep the record straight because at one point this too will pass. I don't want to go into the whole thing that he's been following and what he's doing, but I do think that this is just another moment in time. And resiliency, authenticity, trust, you have to trust in yourself, but you have to trust in your gut that things will change. But each person is responsible for their own actions.
Mm.
I want to thank you for being on the show today. Cloud Chats is kicking off with talking to our consultants that's part of the Leadership in the Clouds Alliance. I want to thank you for coining that phrase with me For anybody that didn't know, Alfred and I have been back and forth with how do we call this group, a consortium, whatever. Alliance came in because that's what we do. We align together when we need to be talking together, working together. In closing, do you have any words about your company that you would want to share with our audience?
Sure. If anyone's interested in finding out what I do, and it's diverse strategies now, one word.com, diversestrategiesnow.com. And we look at leadership development, coaching, DEI or JEDI-B work, JEDI-B NA work, and also organizational development. So we look at the individual and organizational development as well as how it plays out in the communities or in your organizations. And and also we strive to network and collaborate with organizations such as what you're doing with leadership in the clouds and your organizational work, and being part of the alliance is a wonderful opportunity to do that. And I do want to commend you for harnessing some of the best minds out there in diverse areas so that collaboratively we're two times 10 equals 100. So thank you.
Alfred, I love that you keep things on a very high level,
Mhm.
but you are endearing, and relationships virtually are very difficult to keep. But I know that everybody that's listening to you today will connect with you because you're very, very connectable. You come across as a trustworthy, authentic self. I want to say thank you very much for joining us on Cloud Chats, and we'll see you all in the clouds. Thank you today for joining us in Cloud Chats. I know it's a 30-minute conversation that we have with subject matter experts like Alfred Ramirez. diversestrategiesnow.com. It'll be in the LinkedIn part when we put this video out. And I want to thank you all. Each week, we're going to be presenting one of our consultants as they are subject matter experts. And we'll see you in the clouds.